Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. Right here beside me is Mike Bafari, an activist from South America. And right next to me, out of camera range, is Mr. Casper Leach, who's carefully studying his ballot. Hey, Casper. And over in the wings, ready to play some great music for you, is John Cornett. Welcome back to the show, John. We have some hemp news for you, a couple interesting film clips. We'll be taking your phone calls in just a moment, but first we'll roll out our dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, our first news story is from right here in Oregon. An Oregon physician who outraged a crowd at a Tuesday night debate on marijuana legalization when he claimed that 5 Colorado children had died from cannabis retracted his statement on Wednesday and acknowledged that he was wrong. Dr. Ron Schwissler, medical director at an addiction treatment center in Eugene, said, quote, "I really need to retract that statement because I can't back it up," end quote. Schwissler claimed he might have been there might have been a misunderstanding of the stories of children who've been hospitalized in Colorado after accidentally ingesting marijuana-infused edibles. Telling a whopper seems a much more likely explanation for Dr. Schwissler's remark. When Tuesday's discussion turned to the issue of how legalization is being implemented in Colorado, Schwissler said, "Let's concentrate on those edibles. There have been at least 5 infant children deaths in Colorado that have picked up these drugs," end quote. Several audience members began yelling, "Not true," and "What source?" The ill-informed physician was apparently unaware that there has never been one single documented case of a fatal marijuana overdose in history. So he had to admit the truth. Next story is out of Washington, D.C. President Barack Obama intends to nominate Vanita Gupta, the American Civil Liberties Union Deputy Legal Director, to lead the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, according to the Washington Post this Wednesday. This news comes not long after Attorney General Eric Holder announced his imminent resignation and indicates a continued initiative of positive federal drug policy changes. Gupta's been outspoken on a number of issues, including racial sentencing disparities, federal incentives to state police that prioritize the investigation of drug arrests over violent crime, mandatory minimum sentences, and related disparities, as well as marijuana legalization. She currently leads the ACLU's campaign to end mass incarceration. Gupta's also garnered bipartisan support, with conservatives speaking highly of her. Good for her, that's unusual. Earlier this week, hundreds of automatic teller machines in medical marijuana dispensaries in Washington and Colorado were shut down just days after the ATMs were turned off in recreational cannabis shops. The machines in Colorado and Washington were part of a network served by MetaBank, a South Dakota company which in January had warned ATM providers that machines located in marijuana shops violated federal banking rules. Andy McWilliams, the owner of Medicine Man, a Denver recreational and medical marijuana dispensary that has on-site cash dispensing ATMs, said, quote, "Just like that, it was out of commission. I got a warning the night before saying they lost their bank, and that was it," end quote. In Michigan, a Michigan appeals court ruled today that workers who've been fired solely for failing a drug screen because of their legal use of medical marijuana qualify for unemployment benefits, upholding lower court rulings that the state's medical marijuana law preempts its unemployment law. 3-judge panel in Michigan found that 3 State courts were right to reverse a decision by the Michigan Compensation Appellate Commission to deny 3 workers unemployment payments after they were fired for testing positive for marijuana. The judges ruled that a provision of the state's medical marijuana law forbids penalties in any manner for those who use medical marijuana legally. Because the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act trumps the Michigan Employment Security Act, the circuit courts were right to reverse that ruling that the claimants were not entitled to unemployment benefits according to the court's decision. The decision stems from 3 cases in which between 2010 and 2012, 3 employees were fired from their jobs after allegedly violating their employer's drug-free policies by testing positive for medical marijuana. All 3 had state-issued cards authorizing them to legally use cannabis to treat specific medical conditions. A federal marijuana prisoner, Randy Lanier, who's 60 years old now and a former race car driver in the Indy 500 and other races, will be released from prison after serving 26 years of a life sentence at a high-security federal correction complex in Florida for a 1988 conviction on leading a marijuana ring. The U.S. District Judge, Phil Gilbert, has granted a motion by the federal government to reduce Lanier's life sentence and has approved his pending release. Earlier this week, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder endorsed a proposal to reduce sentencing for convicted drug dealers while seeking to eliminate mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug offenders. In Spain, the Basque Parliament a couple weeks ago urged the Basque government to legalize and regulate the activity of social cannabis clubs and give legal support to marijuana cultivation for club members' collective consumption. The Basque Chambers concluding 2 years of work on a study of the clubs with adoption of a recommended solution toward regulating them. The recommendations approved will place the Basque Country at the head of the regulation of these places, according to local cannabis groups. Our last story tonight is from Uruguay. Uruguay's leading opposition candidate for president said he would try to repeal much of the country's historic marijuana legalization law, which allows the commercial cultivation and sale of cannabis if he wins this Sunday's election. The South American nation became the first in the world to officially allow the production and use of cannabis, but almost 2/3 of Uruguayans oppose the experiment, which aims to take control of the marijuana trade away from drug gangs. But notably, even the candidate in question, Luis Lacalle of the centrist National Party, would still allow home cultivation and social cannabis clubs. Lacalle said, quote, "I'll keep the law's articles that allow users to grow their own cannabis at home and authorize smoking clubs and repeal the rest, in particular the state's commercialization of the drug. I'll send a bill to Parliament to repeal it. We need a majority in Parliament, and I look forward for that support." Poe showed Lacalle trailing the left-wing candidate for the Broad Front Party, Tabar Vasquez, who's backed the legalization law. So we'll find out the results of that. So that's the end of our hemp news segment. We're going to jump over to Mr. John Cornett. How are you this week, John?
Oh, really good, Paul.
Good.
I need to read my ballot. I need to find out what the good folks are trying to pull over on us now. Hopefully I'll make a right choice there.
Well, Casper's got his ballot out here, so we'll be discussing that here a little bit later.
Well, here's a song about my passion for cannabis. It's called Mary Jane. For 12,000 years, she's healed our lives. For 1,000 more, she will break the fight. She's my Joan of Arc, reaches through the flames, says, "Come to me, I can heal your pain." She's my Mary Jane, she's my Mary Jane, she's my Mary Jane, she's my Mary Jane. She comes to me, gives me sight, she holds me up in the heat of the night. She's my Rosa Parks, holds her seat. She's amazing grace. She is oh so sweet. Safe from hell in the fire of night. Free my soul and clear my sight. She's my Mary Jane. She's my Mary Jane. She's my Mary Jane. She's my Mary Jane. Safe from hell in the fire of the night. Free my soul and clear my sight. She's my Mary Jane. 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 She's really my Mary Jane, and I love her. Thank you very much.
All right.
And the name of that song was what?
What's that?
What
Mary
was it?
Jane.
The name of the song was Mary Jane?
Yes, sir.
That's cool. That works.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the show, Casper.
Thank you.
Welcome to
Hey,
Mike.
thank you.
Mike Bifara.
Hi, Casper.
So you've been working a long time in South America on cannabis issues.
That's true. I'm originally from there.
Yeah, and so you came up and spoke at our Hemp Stock Festival
I
about
did.
a month ago.
I did.
Thank you for coming for that. by
And
the way.
I've been all these weeks visiting friends, gardens.
Visiting gardens. I know you came and
Yeah.
visited my garden when you
Right.
first got into town.
Right. Yeah, I try to take advantage that I'm here to try to learn as much as possible.
Uh-huh.
And then go back to South America and keep on spreading the word.
Uh-huh. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
I know you've also been investigating the hemp culture
Yes, I did.
in South America. You want to
Uh-huh.
tell our audience a little
Sure.
bit about that?
Sure. Well,
There's
you know,
a long history of hemp
yes,
cultivation
Chile.
in
That's
Chile.
Yeah, the central valleys of Chile is a long country. It's a kind of skinny country, but it's long from north to south. It goes all along the border with Argentina and with the huge mountain range called Los Andes, which is actually the highest peak in the whole America. The highest peak is El Aconcagua, which is the highest peak. And on that central valley in the Chile part, in the Chilean side, hemp was cultivated since 1545 up to 1973 approximately. And so they have about 400 years of long history of the hemp crop. So yeah, it has been overwhelming investigating, the old folks, especially the old folks with all their stories, and it has been really interesting. Yeah.
Was there a change in the economics when hemp was outlawed?
Absolutely, it was a big change. Yeah, well, in 1973, the nylon worldwide prohibition, instructed by the U.S. federal government, right? And in those days, end of the 60s, 70s, prohibition was doing its harm, and and also the nylon, because most of the hemp was cultivated for rope and for clothing. So when the nylon showed up, it was a big disadvantage for the crop. Yeah. So it kind of went bankrupt. And also then the socialist government at that moment, they made a bad propaganda about consuming cannabis as marijuana, not with those new generations that were showing up, that were emerging in those days. So, and then after that, in 1973, they had a terrible military stroke. Is that how you say it? A strike?
Strike.
Yeah, and they took over government and
Coup d'etat.
yeah, cruel dictatorship, Well, the same story happened in many countries in South America.
Pushed by our American CIA. We were down there overthrowing.
Well, I didn't want to say it, but
it's true. It's true.
say it.
We took it upon ourselves to overthrow those governments that some of our corporations didn't like.
So many activists were killed in those days because they were associating marijuana with being a lefty or being a communist. That's the way they were treating these young generations.
Well, marijuana makes you aware of things that you might not be aware of. It makes you examine reality. I think it's a powerful tool to examine reality, and that is exactly what scares our opposition. They don't want us to question their BS. They want us to just accept what we're told, and marijuana makes you look at things in a different way, and that's what really scares our opponents.
In a critical way.
Yeah.
Makes you look society in a critical way, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what makes society better, is once we examine it, see what isn't true and what is true. And obviously, the lies that they've told about marijuana have just been for their own economic, monetary benefit, these huge corporations and dictators. But what are some of the more interesting stories? I'll say it. You don't have to. I don't want you to get in trouble.
No, well, I've been promoting, Prop 91 as we did in the hemp stock. I mean,
Right.
I learned a lot in the 2 days of the hemp stock. So I'm kind of encouraging everybody to get registered and go to vote.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I said in the hemp stock, for some people, this type of democracy voting every 4 years, it's not real. For many people in the world, they don't believe in democracy. Many people don't believe it. But I think that you guys here have a great opportunity, and this is what democracy should be helping, for situations like here in Portland, for Prop 91, because you're going to have the chance to, if you have enough people to go and vote, to change reality, change the law. And that's going to be the starting of a huge change, not only for the state, but for United States and for the rest of the world, because we've seen what happened in South America, with Colorado and Washington. It was a huge impact for all of us, And people are not that educated. There's a big confusion about Washington D.C. and the state of Washington, actually.
Right, that's understandable.
So that was funny because many people were saying, "Hey, Mike, now that you're there in Washington, tell Obama to move aside a second, and you get there and change the world and save us." But
the other side
unfortunately,
of the
I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I haven't
because
been able
I'm
to
not in
talk to
Washington,
Obama
D.C.,
yet
right?
either myself. But he's not accessible. I guess they got to protect him.
He was voting in Chicago. He's busy.
Yeah. At least he did that.
He went and voted in Chicago. I wonder how he voted. I can't figure out how to vote.
Well, you've got your ballot there.
Well, yeah.
I'm only really going to talk about a couple of the votes on there. But let's put that off for a little while because we've got a couple of phone callers standing by. If you're out there and you have a call for us tonight, it's Friday, October 24th as we're recording this story. You can call in at that number that just flashed on your screen. It is 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. And let's go ahead and take one of those calls. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller. Oh, not that line. Well, let's try another one. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm doing fine.
Good.
My question was about when the buds get mildew and there's mildew all over the buds. Are they ruined? Is it still okay to smoke, or what
No.
do you do with mildew on the bud?
No, you can't really smoke it once it's turned mildew, or you'll put that mildew in your lungs, which could cause illness or sickness and maybe make you sick. So you don't want to smoke the buds once they've been mildewed. What you can do is dry them completely, then powder it down, and then put it in the finest silkscreen bag and wash it. And so the mold spores are smaller than anything else, so they will wash out eventually. But if you're in the finest micron sieve, then the crystals and the rest of the marijuana will stay there. Then you can make something like a food product or an extract once you've washed that mold out. But you don't want to smoke it, or you could get sick.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry to hear that happen to you, boy. I had a lot of mold last year, but this year I only put out my most mold-resistant strains, and we had a pretty good year overall. And we got up in the morning every morning and shook the dew off them, because the dew just comes down heavily just before dawn. You can just watch it, drizzling down on the plants out of the atmosphere on a cool fall morning. And then we'd shake it off, and then we'd blow dry them. And so it was a bit of labor, but it's a labor of love. So that's one of the ways we bypass it. Plus having strains that were resistant to mold. Not the densest nugget buds, but we those are tougher in this climate to grow in a mold-free environment here in the Pacific Northwest. Once again, if you have a call or comment for us tonight, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. So, back to the stories. What's the most interesting story from Chile? You must have one or two that stand out in terms of some of those older people that remember the I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah,
I know we didn't talk about this beforehand, but can you think of any that you want to share with us?
Well, there are many, but for many years, Chile used to export, guano, manure.
Yeah.
Bird
I bought
manure.
bird manure,
manure.
seabird guano.
Yeah.
It's the best fertilizer for your cannabis plants, I can tell you that.
Exactly. So, all the sacks, the huge bags where the guano was exported, was shipped, they were made out of hemp, the bags.
I see.
And recently I went to a party in some place in the Central Valleys, a very interesting place with local people. I like to, went to a party with locals. They invited me over. And so these two workers, they were there chatting, and they invited me, with a beer. I don't drink, so I was not too much fun for them. But the man listened to me speak about hemp, and he said, in this man's house, we found an old bag that was made out of hemp. That was for the manure container. And, I asked him if he wanted to donate the bag, and he said no, that he was going to keep it. But then after the party just developed, he was a little bit kind of boozy, I don't know how you say it. If I said it
That's
right.
good.
Okay. And then he said, oh, please, if you give me some marijuana seeds, I will give you the bag, for free. I will give it to you. We traded for a seed. He was desperate for cannabis seeds, Sometimes they're not that available in many places, in some places. So I thought that was funny. And maybe it's not funny for the people that are listening, but in that moment, I thought it was funny because I was passing by that table many times, and I saw how they were changing, And finally, the guy said, "Oh, I want some seeds, and I'll give you the bag." So.
Well, that sounds like a good trade for me.
Only in the marijuana movement would somebody be happy to get a old bag used for manure. We export our bags of manure straight into Washington, right into the House of Congress and the House of Senate.
That has something to do with the vote, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
That's another story. We have another caller standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hey, is that me?
That's you.
Hey, Paul.
Howdy.
How are you all doing tonight?
We're rocking.
All righty. Hey, question. I talked to your screener lady there, and I've been dealing with this crap. 50-plus doctors. I got run down when I was a little kid. Run over by a drunk.
Gosh.
Messed up back, messed up hips, messed up pelvis. I've been through 50-plus doctors.
Oh, no.
And every single one of them, when I mention anything about medical cannabis, the stock response is, well, that's not going to help it. We have no data on that. We have only negatives, Here's the new doctor. Go and talk to this one. They come up with the same response. So my question to y'all is, what is the method to go about trying to find an independent, a real doctor, unknown to the other doctor?
Well, I just happen to know a lot of doctors all across the country.
Because you're Paul.
Huh?
That is all because you are Paul.
Well, actually, it actually started right here in this TV studio.
Yes, I know.
That Dr. Levesque started seeing patients here in this TV studio back in 1999. And one thing led to another, and now we're helping patients all across the United States. So
I am aware of that, and I wish to be among those who get to enjoy herbal things and none of the crap.
Well, if you are anywhere in the United States, you can call our toll-free number. That is 1-800-723-0188. There it is. It just popped on the screen. 1-800-723-0188. And there. And if you're outside, if you're here in the Portland area, you'll save us a few cents by calling our local number at 503-281-5100. We'll be happy to direct you to doctors all across the United States from Maine to Hawaii. And so if you have any of those conditions, from chronic pain being the largest single condition, people with crushed vertebrae and back problems, much as yourself, or nausea, gastrointestinal ailments, neurodegenerative diseases, AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, any of those qualify for medical marijuana in all the states out there, and in some states like California, even a wider assortment of diseases qualify. Also, recently, the state of Oregon has added post-traumatic stress to the list of qualifying conditions as well.
It's interesting. Most medications, they have a long list of side effects if you take the medication. Whereas with marijuana, it has a long list of other medications other ailments that it can help if you take the medication. Isn't that cool?
That is true.
Very, very cool. Hey, this is probably one of the most important parts that I need to ask if you got time.
Go right ahead.
Is there such a thing? I mean, people, you can give it a name. I don't care. Jack Herrera's underwear. Somebody will have a name for it each time. What I'm looking for is if I'm able to do this legally, which I hope to be able to do, I am looking for some that does more of the pain than I'm not necessarily looking to get just shithoused. I'm looking to get the pain taken away.
Yeah, eating cannabis actually works better and longer for pain. So it's more in the route of administration. And so the CBD, which actually kind of blocks the high, has very strong pain relief applications, as well as stopping seizures and gastrointestinal ailments. And so you don't even have to use the flowers for pain relief. Even the leaf will help.
Really? Now
Yeah.
You just enlightened me once again. Okay.
That's what we're here for.
And I suffer from congressional pain, so I do want to get shithoused. And
Well, getting shithoused isn't altogether out of the picture.
it takes care of my
prefer the
pain when I do
to
that.
go away.
I wouldn't say that I get highly inebriated, but I certainly do feel a little bit
Euphoric?
more euphoric, less stressed, a little bit happier. The colors are a little bit brighter.
Oh, yeah.
So
There's not
I
been a moment
appreciate the effects of THC and the cannabinoids, and I really like the terpenes, the flavonoids, the aromatic hydrocarbons that give it the flavor. THC and the cannabinoids are actually flavorless and odorless, and it's only these aromatic hydrocarbons that also have medicinal properties that give it the various aromas and flavors.
So it makes you want to slow down and not move so fast and try to make the morning last.
There you go.
Kicking around a cobblestone, feeling groovy.
Rock on.
And jump off a bridge if they don't okay this thing.
Only with a bungee cord.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm not sure about my weight on a bungee cord. But, yeah, we want to urge all our viewers out there to vote yes on Measure 91. It's very important that we pass this. Yes, Casper, I
I'm
think
on the
you
fence because
you should vote yes on Measure 91.
Absolutely.
isn't it going to like help big business and put a lot
No,
of money into
it'll
the
help mom
governor's
and pop.
pocket? And
Mom and pop businesses.
and isn't this going to make it so that if I want an edible, I'm going to be all like tossed into jail and handcuffed and become
Just the
Bubba's
opposite.
buddy or something?
Just the opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
So this might be a good thing?
It's a good thing. It's entirely a good thing from my perspective.
Yeah, well,
So-
I don't know.
and we won't get tossed in jail anymore.
No?
Thanks for your phone call, by the way.
Thank you so much for all you do.
You are very welcome.
Alrighty, thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night. If you're out there and you have a question for us, call that number there on your screen.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
So how old do you have to be to vote?
18.
18.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But can you have a Sam Adams at 17?
no, so it's nice to send a message to all those young generations that are watching, right?
It's important for them to vote because the younger generations in particular favor this by a very large majority.
Exactly.
So we need to get the young people to vote.
Yes, because law enforcement aims for the youth first.
Yeah, that's right. They're the
So-
most likely to be
so it would be
searched and harassed.
in their own interest, in favor of their own interest, to go and vote and have their family vote and have their friends vote and have everybody to register and get to vote.
Well, that's another reason why I'm kind of hesitant, because how can you trust the police? And they've got the police out there campaigning to say yes on 91.
Well, there are less in Washington and Colorado. They've shown there are less DUIs. There are less murders are down. Yeah. I mean, a lot of crimes are actually going down. And because the police aren't out there arresting us for marijuana, are looking to do that, they have more resources to spend on the remaining violent crimes. So it just makes society a safer place. And we need the police to tell the truth. As long as they're lying about cannabis, nobody's going to believe them. And, when I was a kid, people saw that, they're lying about cannabis. Maybe they're lying about cocaine. Maybe they're lying about methamphetamine. Maybe they're lying about all these other heroin and these other drugs.
Well, my point. So you really think I should vote
I
yes
think
on
you
this?
should vote yes on 91. There's just no doubt about it. You know what? We have a little film clip here from our Hemp Stock Festival. This is Mr. Chris Bennett and his presentation. So enjoy.
What a hero, man. The Oregon, you're blessed, We got one of these heroes in every city where cannabis is taken off. And, in my place is Mark Emery, I was hoping to see a friend of mine here, though, at Hemp Stock. Probably some of you know her, Mary Jane. Have you seen Mary Jane around? I guess she sends her love. She says she's going to be here next year after you pass Prop 91, And, when we talk about cannabis, we're talking about a natural right. It's like our right to air and water. It's a plant. This is like life on Earth and our relationship with plants. And when we talk about a plant like cannabis, we're talking about a plant that we have had a relationship with for tens of thousands of years. Current archaeological evidence of discoveries of hemp cloth go back only like 12,000 years, which is considerably far in history. But the tools used for the decordation of hemp, the breaking up of the fibers for hemp cloth from the hemp stalk, they go back 25,000 years. Can you imagine that? 25,000 years. And in regards to the use of cannabis in religion, they were burning cannabis for sacramental purposes thousands of years before the Bible was written. It was 3,500 years in the Ukraine region, the Seredeni Stog, an ancient culture, who also were the first to train horses. They think this was accomplished by the invention of hemp ropes, by being able to corral them and tie them and make reins and stuff like that. In the Ukraine region, they found evidence of hemp being burnt in caves going back 3,500 years. And because of their high mobility of the horse, this use spread throughout the ancient world, and all over the ancient world. I see people from all sorts of cultures here. I don't care where you're from. If you look back in your history, you're going to find that culture has had a relationship with cannabis. In China, it goes back thousands of years. The great emperor Shen Nung in 2700 BC discovered cannabis for medical uses and talked about it for a variety of elements that we're only rediscovering in this time. And Taoist priests would use cannabis for mystical purposes. There's a 2,500-year-old quatrain First a yin, then a yang. No one knows what I do. Jade buds of holy hemp for the one that lives apart. It's kind of like life has its ups and downs, but cannabis keeps me rolling on through, steady and clean, you know. And in Assyria and Babylonia, we have numerous references to cannabis uses in ointments and incense. The great Assyrian king Ashurnapal had copies of hashish recipes that were thought to be from thousands of years even before his time. And this was an important temple incense. It was also used in topical ointments to open one's ear for God in the Assyrian literature. And this is interesting because there are these Hebrew references that a number of scholars are pointing to. And if you want to find out more about this, you should check out my YouTube film, Cannabis, the hidden story of cannabis in the Old Testament, that has people like Dr. Ethan Russo and Professor Carl Ruck explaining this. There are these Hebrew references to cannabis that a number of scholars are now saying are references to cannabis. And this was an important ingredient in what was known as the holy anointing oil and temple incenses used in Judaism. And in the references, Moses, who first speaks to the Lord in flames of fire from within a burning bush, is commanded to make this holy anointing oil with about 9 pounds of this cannabis mixed with myrrh, cinnamon, and cassia, and put into a holy anointing oil. And he would place some of this oil on the altar of incense, kind of like how people dab nowadays, and he would speak to the Lord in the pillar of smoke, and he'd question, and the answers would come back to him, you know. And so this is a radical revision of what was taking place, you know, plant-based shamanism in the Bible and other religions. In India, it has been used like for thousands of years. Shiva, the oldest continually worshipped God on earth, whose worship goes back to the Stone Age, is the Lord of cannabis. To partake of cannabis is to partake of Lord Shiva himself, you know. And in Persia, the Zoroastrian religion deeply relied on cannabis for its revelations. It was known as bhang and prepared with wine and other beverages and consumed. And they would take very, very potent, more than smoking it, they would ingest these powerful extracts and go into a sleep, and they would come back with their visions. And this formed the basis for much of their religious literature. And recently they found in China a 2,700-year-old mummy, a Caucasian mummy in central China. And they found over 2 pounds of perfectly preserved cannabis, female cannabis buds. And so that culture there, which existed in China from 2000 to 500 BC, was another cannabis-using culture. And from there it spread out into Afghanistan. They found a 4,000-year-old temple, size of a football field. And half of that temple was dedicated to the preparation of a sacred beverage, the Heoma. And they found archaeological evidence showing hemp seeds and tested remnants from some of the pots and things like that, and found evidence of THC, showing that this sacred beverage, the Heoma, that became known as Soma in India, which is the basis of the Persian and Indian religions, was actually this cannabis preparation. So all over the world, you know, in Africa, the pygmies say they have been using cannabis since the dawn of time, and that God gave the pygmies hemp so they would be healthy and happy, you know. Carl Sagan speculates that it was likely our first cultivated crop, and that seems very likely considering this very ancient history. And culture itself grew out of agriculture. So as we've cultivated this plant through history, it's cultivated us, you know. And I've been talking about religions and stuff like that, but I want you to know that there's more healing power in this plant than any church, synagogue, temple, mosque, anything like that, any book or anything like that. There's more actual healing power in this plant. And there's more community power in this plant as well than any governments that put us in jail for using it. And you know, when you think about it, when we were hungry, with the protein of its seed, this plant fed us with the rich omega oils. When we were naked, with the fibers of its cloth, cannabis being the first woven cloth, this plant dressed us. When it came time to see the world, this plant provided the sails for the ships and the caulking for the boats. When it came time to write down what we'd seen, it provided the paper for doing it, you know. And when our child was shaken from epilepsy, when our parents were going blind from glaucoma and dying from cancer, it provided the medicine to heal us. And this plant, we can heal our planet with hemp fuel, hemp paper instead of cutting down our forests. We can heal our bodies and we can heal our soul. And in this time, in this age, we have the opportunity for a paradigm-shifting culture to move away from the petrochemical, petroleum-based industries of our governments and the corporations that run them, and to go back to that natural world and go back and reestablish our relationship with this natural healing plant and to gather hand in hand around this once and future life. And I believe Oregon has the opportunity here to really push that into the next level if they pass this legalization. Legalization in the United States will be unstoppable if you pass this law. So you got to do whatever you can do, and you got to get everybody you know to register and vote and make this thing happen. God bless y'all. Get ready for the tree life.
Well, I just got to say amen.
Yeah.
And a woman too.
Yeah. The ganja.
So
the ganja got it.
you've seen the effects of the votes in Washington and Colorado.
Yes.
In South America.
Yes,
So that's provide a huge impetus, like in Uruguay.
Yes, they say you know the common man, right? The man on the street. They say the gringos are legalizing. They prohibited and now they're legalizing. What are we waiting for now? You know?
Right. So it's urging on and exciting our culture,
Yes.
our global culture, which is probably the large. When you take all the cannabis smokers all around the world, there are more cannabis users than any specific religion out there.
Yes.
And we are.
And more organized.
Yeah. So we are organizing because we see the potential here of changing that whole petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, crony, capitalist system.
You forgot sons of bitches.
Well, I left the sons of the
Oh,
bitches out, but I changed it to crony, capitalist, instead of fascist.
You want me to do it? Sons of bitches.
Okay, you can do it.
Paul, and
He's the nice one.
no, I wanted to say something. I would give a message, because I was hearing like the gentleman that called, the medical issue, the medical marijuana. Like, in most countries, there's no medical marijuana programs. They're not at all.
In Chile, where you're at.
In Chile, just started now,
Right.
but just a month ago.
Right.
So it's not even implemented yet.
Right. It's time to implement it now.
Right. So the message is that for many elderlies and many people who suffer different type of diseases, living here in the United States and living here in Portland, it gives you, in Oregon, it gives you the chance to get into one of these programs, the medical marijuana programs, that as a medicine, has no contrary, nothing against. It's a natural substance.
And you can't overdose
You
on
can't
it.
overdose. It's for many people, it's maravilloso. I said it in Espanol, right? Miracle.
Yeah.
So I encourage people that, maybe some people are watching the show and they want to go for it. They want to try it, but, they still have some part of the, the old
stigma.
Yeah, the stigma. The stigma that has been, put in people's brains like a chip with all these money invested now by the federal government.
Right.
Thousands of billions of dollars, right? So, that's the message. If you think that marijuana can help, if you feel it, that it can help you, you should get inscribed in one of these, apply for a marijuana program here in the state.
Yeah. And then with Measure 91, it'll just legalize it. So somebody over 21 will be able to grow their own. They'll be able to grow 4 ounces and have some marijuana at their house and be able to go to a store and buy it. You should just start voting now. Yes on 91. That's what we want to say. Back in 1980, Oregon almost joined Washington, Colorado. We got 47% of the vote then. But now we have a much better funded campaign with 20 times more financing than we had 2 years ago. The advertisements are out there. The polls are showing we're going to win.
Yeah, but
we need to make certain.
It talks about this regulation and taxation by the state. Now, what are they going to do with the tax money, and how are they going to tax it, and what's going on with, and who's getting control of this?
The Oregon Liquor Control Commission will
All
be,
right.
and they already have a series of stores across the state, but new stores will be able to get a license and just sell marijuana. I know a lot of people don't want to see liquor and
Are we going to see Paul's
Cannabis.
Buds stop by soon?
Well, you know, there will be a lot of businesses. There will be a lot of different people jumping into this. This law has a relatively low tax of just $35 an ounce on flowers and $10 an ounce on trim and shake, and a low license fee of $1,250. So
what's it going to do to all those underground gardens that are making a
they'll
lot
be
of
able
money?
to come out into the light of day and openly market their wares and not worry about being arrested anymore. For those of you out there that think that marijuana legalization is going to somehow stop your ability to have a home garden or to be able to sell cannabis, this just opens it up and legalizes it and brings it into the light of day where people aren't going to jail anymore and families aren't being destroyed. We don't have these SWAT team raids, paramilitary police bursting in doors over this beneficial plant. And so I urge you to vote yes on Measure 91. We have a caller who's been standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, Paul, Casper.
Howdy.
Honored guest. I'm sorry, I've
Mike
didn't
Bifari.
Mike?
Mike Bifari. Did I say it right?
You said it right.
I said it right that time.
Well, thanks.
Sure?
And it kind of has to do. What I have to say is has to do with what Mike said. You know, okay, these gringos are passing it. Well, why can't we? You know, why don't we do it? Okay, now, Paul, this is Kim, and as an activist myself, having lobbying and stuff, my question to myself is, okay, the train's rolling. We're going down the road. It's not stopping. Where do we put our efforts now?
You know, I think getting Hemp Fuel out there is where I'm going to put some of my efforts.
Industrial's the way to go.
Yeah, I think that trying to change the whole petrochemical paradigm and start producing hemp fuel. You know, you get one of these marijuana licenses, and then you can grow hemp without regard to its THC content. You can grow the hemp that is most productive.
Where?
And, you know, you can grow big buds with big, fat, sweet seeds in them. And then you'll take out the big, fat, sweet seeds and make protein and fuel, and you'll still have the big buds left over that can make medicine and other things. That's just one of the things you can do with one of these new licenses to be able to cultivate cannabis. You'll be able to open up a little store if that's what you want to do. If you want to make concentrates, it just opens up that whole realm that's been denied for us for so long, and it starts to remove that stigma. And so I really see hemp fuel eventually dwarfing, not eventually, but in pretty short order, dwarfing the drug market. And I think that's where I'm going to be focusing a lot of my efforts.
No, I agree with you, and that's when I lobby. That's one of my biggest efforts, because the drug market is a very small fraction, small fraction of the
whole energy
thing.
is the world's largest industry, and obviously it's the energy industry that pushes this whole military-industrial complex for these wars for oil. Obviously, the whole war in Iraq was about energy. The war in Libya was about energy. The wars that are going on in so many places are about energy. We can replace petroleum with hemp seed oil, and instead of having that money go into these multinational corporations and the Saudi sheiks and the Nigerian despots, Swiss bank accounts or Grand Cayman bank accounts, or in gold bullion that they can stuff under their mattress or on their rings and around their necks, we can put that money into the hands of our farmers. We'll be spending it in our communities and enriching everyone instead of the capital-intensive petrochemical industry.
So this isn't the same mess that they had in Washington, where in Washington, after they voted for it, they were sorry they did?
This is radically different than Washington. This is much, much better than the law that passed in Washington. It's quite a bit better than the law that passed in Colorado.
Cool.
91?
Yeah, 91.
Oh, but Paul, now I agree with you on the bill that you were trying to get in there, but with this one it seems very limited to me. But it's the best of
it's still a lot better.
Okay? Yeah.
You know, this is a lot more extensive bill. It's like 35 pages of text. It's really modeled on the state liquor laws. And you know, I sat in on a lot of these meetings starting in November of 2012, just after we lost on Measure 80. I probably went to about 30 of the 45 meetings that they held. My main input was taking out a few bad things.
Well, I was getting ready to vote yes, but he said it's limited. Limited in what way there, sir?
It's limited. It's limited on the amount that
Yeah.
you can have.
Unless you have a license. If you have a license, unlike Washington, unlike Colorado, there aren't any limits once you have that license. You just have to legally sell it, pay the tax,
So,
not
Paul,
sell it to
does
people.
Does that mean, Paul?
Well, for
Does that mean,
instance,
Paul, that you'll be able to do what you have always dreamt of doing?
yeah.
Having acres and acres where you just drive your tractor to the oil manufacturing part of the farm, fill
Yes,
up your tractor and
it
drive
will.
away.
I think it will. I think this, and I'm gonna be doing it. You know, we
Okay,
won't
I
see
wanna
these
see you,
licenses
Paul.
start being
I've
issued
been
probably till 2015. So it'll take a while for all of the mechanisms of bureaucracy and the OLCC to get everything ready to go. But it does change the whole paradigm. And though you're limited in the amount you can grow at home without a license, once you get that license, and the license is relatively inexpensive, $1,250. That's less than what we spend for 7 patient cards. You know, I personally take care of over 100 patients. And so instead of spending $200 times 100, which is what all these patients have to do, it'll just be one $1,250 fee. So it's much, much better in that regard.
Okay. Well, I am going to vote for it, and I am encouraging everybody to vote for it because we need
You heard him, Casper.
something.
Well, all
okay? And I hope that you are able to get out there and get your farms going and get your start making the products that we need to have made here in America.
Yeah, fuel, fiber, paper, building materials. We're
Pharmaceutical
going
and
to change the whole economic paradigm, not just here in Oregon, but for the whole world.
Thank you, folks, for all your efforts, and keep on keeping on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your call.
And
Bye.
you guys talked me into it. I guess I'm going to go ahead and, is it 91 here?
It's 91.
I'm going to vote yes on it.
Vote yes on 91.
There you go, yes right here.
I wanted,
It's official.
Go ahead,
Yes,
No, I wanna-
Miguel.
91.
I wanted to, you know, I wanted to do this. I wanted to really to congratulate you because this is my second time on the show, you know, and it's a real honor to be here, especially with you two guys and with all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I think that you can tell the people, probably the people already know, but
Our
you know,
flame
this
of
is
freedom.
Hemp Fuel, right? Hemp
That's
Fuel.
right. That's right.
And you know, in all these days I've been around here, I've been in Washington also, in Washington State, and I've been in these stores, you know, and you can buy actually hemp products, you know, in many places. I think that, you know, just a simple thing for the people that are watching to do in our favor is to consume hemp things, you know.
Yeah, that's
because
what I do.
that will encourage people. The
I really
demand,
love
you
my
know,
hemp
so-
milk. I love hemp milk.
and
So
you know
good for
the
you.
things are linked. I just want to say this that also you have the chance to vote against the GMO,
That's true.
which is
That's true.
it's also very important because
Yeah,
you know
Measure
you got to
92
be
here
very
in Oregon.
conscious about what we consume. You know, it's all linked. Everything is linked. You know.
I agree.
So.
Thank you, Miguel. We have a studio audience member who wants to ask questions, make comment. Go right ahead.
Yes, I wanted to put into this as far as promoting, saying that as far as the gas and having gas in it, turning it into that and everything. My son, who unfortunately isn't with us anymore, but in 2007, he had a Nissan car, which he paid $150 for a converter to turn it over and make it so it could be run on oils and stuff. And
Oh,
he
right,
knows of
biodiesel.
a farm out in the Tualatin area that is in. By 2007, they have a great big farm out there, and all their tractors, all their trucks, everything have been run on hemp oil, and as for 11 years as of 2007.
All right.
Cool.
They have
Well,
not
thank
had
you.
to go to a gas station at all. for any of their trucking things, and that's been going on for this many years already. So if one farmer who's been doing this for
Gets
years
over 300
can be
gallons
doing
per
it,
acre.
everybody can be doing it.
And the byproduct of making that
Yep.
300 gallons of oil per acre is 3 tons of high-protein hemp seed meal, 25 tons of hemp bast fiber, 10 tons of, or 25 tons of hemp hurd fiber, and 10 tons of hemp bast fiber. So please vote yes on that. Do we have enough time for our video? We've got one more video. It's a little over. Well, so it goes. Well, anyway, Mike, you're going back to Chile here in just a couple of days.
I'm going back to Chile. There's a big expo, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, called the Expo Weed. This is their 4th edition.
In Santiago.
In Santiago. So the last one, it was about 20,000 personas in 2 days. And we think that this one is going to be around 35,000 in 3 days.
Wow.
And then we have another expo in Uruguay, December. 15, 16 December.
You've told them, and I think I'm going to be down there.
Expo Cannabis.
Give a little presentation there at that Expo Cannabis.
Yes, and
in Montevideo.
In Montevideo. And a little word about one of your news that you mentioned, Uruguay.
Yes.
You know, the candidate that has more chances to win the election is the last one you mentioned.
Yeah.
Which is I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Tabaré Vázquez. Right?
And he's pro-cannabis, in favor of the law Mujica.
Yes, he only says that he wants to change the part that the pharmacies will expand cannabis, you know, because the pharmacy union, they don't want to do that. So that's what they're not saying, that the whole project is not going through the pharmacies because the pharmacies are opposed to it.
The pharmacies don't really want it there.
So,
well, they'll realize their mistake sometime soon.
Yeah, well, we're in favor of the clubs, the social clubs, which are developing, you know, like in Spain. So many people are, you know, going forward with the clubs, which is another safe way of access.
All right.
So basically,
well, I want to thank you for coming on. We're down to just a couple minutes. You want to give a plug for your radio show?
Basically, you go from party to party all the time. That's all you do, right? From one big party in one country to another party. Must be hard to be you. Listen, he's on my network, too. He does a show in Spanish along with Morgiana. Morgiana, what's that word? Sativa?
Morgana Sativa, yeah.
Sativa. I've heard of the Sativa.
Yeah.
And you go to timeforhemp.com, and we're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If we're not singing about how wonderful marijuana is, we're telling you why prohibition needs to end. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's what?
Time for hemp.
Time for hemp,
And you know what? We're down to just 1 minute left. I want to, at this last moment, urge you to vote yes on Measure 90. This is our last live show before the election. When we come back with our next live show in 2 weeks, we hope to be able to announce that we voted to legalize marijuana here in Oregon and join Washington, Colorado. So thank you for watching.
If you win, I want to come here and celebrate with you guys.
It's a deal.
Right on.
All right. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week. We'll have a tape show. We'll be back with a live show in 2 weeks. We're going out with another great song by John Cornett. Thank you, John. And help us restore hemp.